この番組はご覧のスポンサーの提供でお送りします。
Alright, so we're doing this again. Hello everyone, this is the voice inside your head telling you to spend more St. Quartz. Happy anniversary too, as it's officially been 1 year from now since the last time I made my big debut with this very same type of video. So, you've seen the title of the video, you already know why you're here. Who are the top 10 choice servants to save for on the English server of FGO come 2019? Well, it's going to be a bit easier this year than the last for two key reasons. First, Delightworks simply released far fewer brand new servants during this time on JP than the previous year. And second, the power levels for a lot of these servants don't compare well to many of the powerhouses of the previous year. Like, damn! Last year set the stage for iconic servants in such bulk that wouldn't really be replicated for quite a while. Possibly ever again. So keep that in mind. If you have a lot of the 5-star and 4-star servants from FGO's first full year of existence, you may find a few of the entries on this list to be rather lackluster compared to what you've got already. A lot of the servants on this list are actually pretty equal in rarity too, in that they all have rather sparse banners, with only 1 or 2 releases ever up to the time of this recording. And this is with the knowledge of precisely 2 years into the future of FGO. So that's why, even more than last year's list, I weighed into consideration just how much I think you actually need these servants, and how easily I could recommend them to you if you actually care about gameplay, with both veterans and newbies alike in mind. How reliable is the servant, and how broad and useful is their unique niche? With those questions in mind, let's finally take a look at who I believe are the top 10 servants to save for in 2019 on the English server of Fate Grand Order.
Number 10. Berserker. Mysterious Heroine X Alter.
MHXA's placement on this list isn't myself being nice, it's myself being patient. MHXA doesn't become eye-opening until her rank-up quest and Scotty's release, but that rank-up quest to improve her lame intuition skill should become accessible in a mere 5 months after her initial release, so I feel justified applying that as part of why she gets to edge her way into 10th place. And, while waiting for Scotty, I don't know of many other servants in FGO who mesh with everybody's favorite budget Merlin, Hans Christian Andersen, as well as MHXA does. Explaining her through the cooperation she shares with this small boy makes for an adequate demonstration of how to properly utilize her. Okay, so her Infinite Black Onko raises her HP recovery effectiveness over 3 turns, and then heals her once. And Hans possesses a Noble Phantasm which he can basically fire off at will thanks to his rapid casting skill that heals the whole team over 3 turns. Bang! More healing than expected for this Berserker, lined up perfectly. Even better if she gets the critical star drop rate increase as well, since she's got 2 high NP gaining quick cards, good hit counts on her buster cards, a quick 9-hit Noble Phantasm, and a 3-turn quick boost on her intuition after her rank up. Bang! And here comes my favorite part. You see, Berserkers are notorious for having the worst star weight in the game, while casters are notorious for stealing critical stars away from servants who would rather have them. MHXA's third skill fixes this problem right when she needs it most. Invisible Hand of the King allows her to target an ally and reduce their star weight for a turn by 100%, and then act as a charisma skill to boost the party's attack power. So, not only does MHXA far more likely obtain her nom-noms depending on your third party member, but she's boosted by an even more confident strength increase. And so is Hans if you're still forced to attack with him. Hans also, of course, possesses a critical strength buff for the entire party, and an innocent monster skill to generate even more critical stars. These two are like peanut butter and chocolate, or perhaps bean paste and yeast. Also, MHXA is a cutie patootie Sith Lord, and wields a bonus damage fetish against sabers that actually makes sense, cause Berserkers hate everybody. Good thing she has one of the highest HPs in the game to see that finish through with her badass shonen anime super attack. And once Scotty comes, well, shit. She just becomes one of the best single target servants in the game. She may be powered by candy, sugar, and carbohydrates, but this girl could easily be considered the biggest investment and hibernation of your time and energy on this list.
Number 9. Foreigner, Abigail Williams.
I think... No, scratch that. I know a lot of people sleep on Abigail Williams. Katsushika Hokusai's release is only a month after hers, and she is technically the superior foreigner between the two girls, but that being said, Hokusai doesn't do any of the things that Abigail does besides having a unique damage resistance against berserkers. Abigail's key detriment is that her NP gain percentage is absolutely miserable despite having 3 6-hit arts cards. But this in turn makes it much easier for her to instead arts chain her way to that mismatched Buster Noble Phantasm she's got. A Noble Phantasm that removes all buffs from the target she's chosen before she damages them. The only other servant who does that is also a servant of God, introducing Jesus Christ in Japan. And while this child of otherworldly encounters has skills with cooldowns that will make you cringe, these skills do admittedly wield very useful effects that make it clear that she is meant to be a team player. Prayer of the Faith, which raises everyone's NP gauge by 10% for 3 turns, alongside a fitting NP strength boost of up to 30%. Then all you have to do is just give Abigail a Prisma Cosmos as a present, and her nasty NP gain will be a balancing consequence of the past. And if you happen to have a Tamamo to team up with her, then such a consequence was never a concern for you in the first place. Including pretty much every other consequence presented to the Eldritch Lolly while I'm at it. Like survivability and skill cooldown. You were probably going to use Tamamo for Hokusai's sake anyway if you care about gameplay, so the key difference between the two foreigners narrows down between wave-clearing enemies with a constant barrage of tidal waves, or jackhammering a single stubborn nail with the might of Cthulhu's relatives. Or I mean, we could always just talk about the fact that the latter is more compatible with Merlin. Similar to Tamamo, Abigail even comes equipped with 2 solid stall moves. Sanity Loss B, which presents a chance over time to cast stun on every enemy, but even if that never works over the 3-turn cooldown, the immediate defense decrease more than likely will. And there's Witch Trial A+, which lowers a targeted enemy's NP gauge by 1 and decreases their overall attack by a decent amount for 3 turns too. Existence Outside the Domain EX, a passive unique to foreigners and other characters linked to interdimensional deities, also generates Abigail a couple of critical stars every turn on its own, which actually reminds me of a more subversive way to take advantage of her 6-hit arts cards, because everything the King of Heroes finds worthy turns to gold. King's Return and Sovereign of Magical Staff both turn Abigail's alien arts cards into critical star mongering NP gaining machines. And given that foreigners also have impressively high star weight on par with the Archer class, you'll receive the additional pleasure of pretending there was never any issue with her arts cards to begin with. Though funny enough, she can run just fine without the charisma. She's got one of the highest attack stats in the game! Just, Abigail Williams shouldn't be considered as if she's riddled with problems, but instead, I think she's a puzzle worth solving. She's actually pretty easy to salvage. There are a handful of servants who are genuinely ill-equipped in FGO, but whether you find disdain from lollies or not, this strange little girl isn't really one of them.
Number 8. Ruler, Sherlock Holmes.
Because the world thought he was too dangerous to be left a caster, the world's greatest detective has been reduced to a mediator for arts crits instead. And although he may be the physically strongest ruler in terms of raw stats, his role is mostly relegated to being support because of his noble phantasm. Elementary, my dear. This lowers the enemy team's defense by a world-shattering 30 to 50% depending on level, and then allows his team to ignore invincibility and any other defensive buffs for 3 turns, while increasing their critical strength anywhere between 50 to 100% determined by his overcharge. Even though you'll always be putting this Noble Phantasm before an offensive one, Sherlock's NP gain is so good that he will easily be able to either spam his support or overcharge it with ease if you manage to pull multiple copies of him, thanks to his deck, hit counts, and a few tricks he has under his coat for the sake of his own personal benefit. Natural Insight A++ grants critical stars. Deductive Reasoning A+, then absorbs his dropped critical stars for a turn. And finally, Baritsu B++ raises his arts card's effectiveness for a whole turn on top of that. They all share a 5-turn cooldown by level 10. But each of these skills comes with an add-on effect that enhances his worth, such as NP sealing, nullifying debuffs, or granting evasion. They're a bit awkwardly placed and jarring compared to the clear pattern I just outlined, but they aren't unwelcome. Unlike Tamamo no Mae, Waver, Castergill, or Hans, Sherlock meets a strange niche of completely offensive support. His skill set is predominantly offensive, and his Noble Phantasm provides universal offensive coverage, lowering all enemies' defenses while raising his friend's damage potential. The complete ignorance to defensive boosts which it imparts is particularly noteworthy, as this will be perfect for many tricky and foreseeable future challenge quests. But looking at what he does provide the party, Sherlock is so focused on potential problems and potential damage that most of what he provides isn't too practical in most general scenarios. Tamamo, Waver, Castergill, Hans, and many other casters all meet the general desires of most players, with normal attack boosts, defense boosts, healing, and even cooldown reduction in Tamamo's case. He is certainly unique and useful in his own right, but in a stronger year for newly released SSR servants, Sherlock would be difficult to recommend to a casual audience. Hence, I give him a safely low placement on this list.
Number 7.
剣は生死の狭間にて大活し
Sabre. Munenori Yagyu.
お前はいずれを見るものか
This was almost a neck-and-neck tie between Jubei's stone-faced honor daddy here and Moe Moe Franchan exploiting her zombie charm points. Even the app media tier list couldn't give me any ideas. And then I remembered. This is a competition between Arts versus Quick, and Scotty isn't even released until next year. By that point, Mysterious Heroine X Alter will be queen. Meanwhile, Munenori has all of the Arts support he'll ever need right now. For Fran, on the other hand, her best Quick support at the moment resides with Waver, and he works with everybody. Really speaks to Munenori's quality, though, if he's able to tie with Fran on app media with what he's got now against what she will inevitably have in the future, considering how great both of them are. Munenori gets the slight edge for now for these reasons, but that doesn't necessarily give Sabre Fran a low recommendation from me. I just wanted to pick only one of the two for this list, since I'm not a big fan of ties. Besides, if I have to be honest, Munenori's kit alone is my personal preference. First and most apparent of all, he wields an evade that encourages you to level it, seeing as it also grants Munenori up to a 20% attack buff. Fran doesn't even have any kind of invincibility whatsoever. But wait! Fran does have a skill which grants her a massive buff to her NP gain though, making her great for farming. However, this does mean she has to hit things. This old man literally takes a seat, and his third skill gives him up to 50% NP gauge immediately, while also cutting a target enemy's attack power in half. And when he's finally done intimidating his opponent through his cold, statuesque posture, his very first skill readies him with not only an Arts mana burst, but also a critical star gather rate extended onto his Arts cards alone if available. True, this means he needs a bit of setup, but that's wicked considering that his Noble Phantasm, should Munenori's opponent remain standing, further lower their attack strength for 3 turns based on overcharge. This, combined with his third skill, grants him a niche that provides a whole other angle for improving your team's own defense. They won't even need a team-wide defense buff when their foe is slapping any or all of them for laughable single-digit damage. Granted, high enough magic resistance or whatever immunities a boss character might be carrying can guard against this, so it's not always perfect. Nonetheless, Munenori's arts base and skills will give you many attempts to keep trying to land these debuffs, as many party enemies are keen on stripping away your party's buffs, but not so careful as to cleanse themselves of whatever ailments you stack against them. And besides, you're slashing them up while you're doing it. I now have no doubt Munenori was summoned at his age for his wisdom.
Number 6.
さあ喜びなさい
Moon Cancer. BB.
ドロドロにしてあげるカーストキューピッドクレンザー
The only class in the game who can compete for raw damage output with Berserkers has to be Avengers. And unfortunately, unlike Berserkers, Avengers have had no obvious weakness apart from Berserkers, who would likely sooner get one-shot by Avengers than come anywhere close to killing them. But that all changes once we're greeted with BB, who is super niche, super useful, and super rare, only ever appearing during the one-time canonical Seraphix event and CCC collaboration as its welfare servant. And that event is no joke. It's a challenge event that makes you actually work for her. Fuck you, Kiara! And besides injecting these emo Avengers with happy materials, she actually wields some of the most generally potent skills in the game because she's a selfish cheater. Self-modification EX? I know you know what that does. Thinking of you, Jalter! But on someone who relies on arts and quick cards? Cancerous. How appropriate that she's also obviously a certified medical expert with a targetable heal that cleanses all debuffs and slaps on a band-aid to nullify against them one time over 3 turns. Oh, and she can neutralize targeted enemies with another skill that stifles their movement and then proceeds to strip them naked of their invulnerability, while possessing the item construction passive too. Can't have them wearing anything before they get their shots. In fact, they might even need some more since her Noble Phantasm lowers their debuff resistance after she's injected the initial medicine. And thanks to her breathtaking smile, she enhances the morale of the party, providing 20% NP gauge for everybody. BB is very good at feigning concern for the well-beings of others. Really, it's this pattern that keeps me coming back to her. Avengers are gratefully hard to come by. On niche alone, I'd probably forget I even have her, especially considering that all of her points became allocated to her HP, it seems, leaving her with such tiny attack potency. But I could never forget a dedicated NP spammer with such handy skills. How considerate of you, BB-chan.
Number 5.
邪魔者にはそろそろご退場願おう
Alter Ego. Meltrilus.
消えなさいサラスバティメルトアウト
What is an alter ego? Well, strictly regarding FGO's mechanics, what you will primarily use them for is the 1.5 times damage modifier class advantage when striking riders, casters, and assassins. But they also deal double damage to foreigners, as well as resist them. Sabers, archers, and lancers do resist an alter ego's damage, but apart from berserkers, alter egos receive neutral damage from every class's attacks. This makes a bit of sense to me, seeing as Meltrilus is constructed by BB herself to dice and liquefy nearly any and all living things as she sees fit. And as a split portion of BB's cruel and unyielding love, Melt acts as an extremely selfish servant in your hands, to the point of arrogance as showcased by her demerits. One of her skills lowers her defense by 10% over 3 turns, and another lowers everyone's NP strength for 1 turn, friends and foes included. However, my girl Melt isn't on this list for her debatable charm. She's so fast that Crime Ballet grants her 2 evades, plus a pile of pleasurable critical stars to aid her in slicing some easy face. Sadistic Streak then raises her overall attack by up to 30% until she can finally launch her power play, the eponymous Melt Virus, which increases her NP strength by an additional 30%. Upon her release, it can be tricky to time this accurately, similarly to Ishtar's Mana Burst gem, but after we've imprinted on her long enough, DW will pity us enough to grant her one strengthening quest where she releases relieves us of the need for timing, and adds another turn for the NP strength increase instead. This is certainly exploitable, seeing as Melt herself is a quick-based servant with advantageous hit counts and a remarkably high NP gain percentage. After she's sliced away all of her targeted enemies' buffs with her Noble Phantasm, Melt will even raise the potency of her quick cards with Overcharge after she lands it for a whole 3 turns. Odd choice in placement, but I guess she feels self-assured that more quick cards will be on the way. And being one of BB's high servants, she comes outfitted with a variety of passives fruitful towards her high-speed endeavors, such as Riding B for a quick boost, Independent Action A for increased critical damage, and the unsullyable debuff resistance combo of both Magic Resistance B and Core of the Goddess B. Sure, there will be other single-target alter egos much later in FGO, but akin to MHXA, this diva's an investment. Mecha Ellie-chan will be the option for those without, but by the time Scotty arrives, Shito and I will barely be able to keep up. Unlike Mysterious Heroine X Alter, though, Melt will already be a valuable tool for Slaughter right out of the box. But due to her Glass Cannon Act and finicky playstyle demanding a key eye from the player, I can't in good faith have her towering over the remaining entries on this list. It's a good thing Passion Lip is featured on her debut banner, as she can pair quite well with her tanky, taunting 4-star sister to perform quite a fearsome duet.
Number 4.
天満台自在天神
Sabre.
我が空洞
Musashi
我が
Miyamoto.
生涯医者な大天使
Finally, the Sabre with a triple buster deck done right. And it only took the 5-star mantle to get there. Of course it did. Because of this, combined with her top-tier attack stat and a single-target Noble Phantasm, I won't hesitate to call Musashi the physically strongest Sabre available during either of her main releases in FGO this year. Her Noble Phantasm even increases her NP strength before firing it off. It's nuts. But if she was just a gorilla, she wouldn't be so high on this list, perhaps not even making this list at all. Now, the true answer is in the skills, and how she makes her brute force attacks actually worth your time and St. Quartz. Her first skill, 5th Sequence A, is the end-all problem solver for her deck, allowing Musashi the one-of-a-kind ability to double her hit count in exchange for having her attack power for 1 turn. So, the moment you see that one lonely arts card she has, remember to yourself, 3 hits becoming 6 hits with a base 0.87 NP multiplier. Let me just save you the math and note-taking and tell you firsthand that this is absurd amounts of NP gain from just a single card, putting in the work by itself. In practice, Musashi is easily capable of gaining about half of her NP gauge without even landing a critical. It might as well be an NP steroid bundled with an intuition skill, seeing as it works on both her quick and extra attack cards too. Yeah, after this, her next 2 skills are just the icing on the cake, but important nonetheless. Heavenly Eyes A ignores invincibility and acts as Musashi's mana burst. Since you'll very likely activate this immediately as you're about to launch her Noble Phantasm, the skill makes for a decent combo with said Noble Phantasm, which removes all buffs after it is struck. She's already cleaving through the most common immunities to damage they could possibly have, so stripping them naked afterward is more poetic than it is senseless. Then, in contrast, Emptiness A grants Musashi invincibility while also cleansing herself of all debuffs, and it also raises her critical star drop rate. Very odd choice to place this attack-focused skill on her defense-focused invincibility, but at least it lasts 3 turns and makes her buster cards a bit more useful beyond simply whacking monsters dead on the head, so whatever. In conclusion, Musashi is a bit difficult to recommend if you already possess a trusty single-target Sabre at your Chaldea, but should you be without one by her banner, I assure you, she is the best sword you could possibly have in your arsenal.
Number 3.
劇場は海より来たる
Caster.
見るがよい
Summer Nero Claudius.
世の黄金劇場である
The previous year's summer servants and their relative usefulness could be debated. I personally thought a couple of them were either too niche or too messy to recommend, but I mostly clumped them together because of how generally good they all were and have proven to be with time. But among 2019's summer setup, while a good number of them, such as Sabre Frankenstein, Lancer Raiko, and Rider Ishtar, are at least widely circulated units for their versatility, the loud and proud caster Nero Claudius sits at a tier above, and I'm not just comparing their star ranking. If she wasn't AoE, she would be the definitive strongest offensive caster available in the game. But that only makes her that much better at farming and weeding out the weaklings. She is undoubtedly AoE to spread this strength apart from her other powerhouse contemporaries and onto far more enemies, with Rampage Privilege being one of the most appropriately named skills I have ever read. Nero can fire off Noble Phantasms as fast as Song, and with 2 6-hit arts cards and a 6-hit extra attack featuring a 0.4% base NP gain each, her efficiency is secure. Far better than what Abigail is working with comparatively. And then there's the matter of power. Follow me on this one. 7 Crowns C improves both her defense and attack potency by up to 30%. Undying Magus A is a targetable Guts that grants the target up to an additional 50% overall attack strength. That's a mana burst on anyone over 3 turns. And if used on herself, that's an 80% attack buff for 3 whole turns. Combined with the fact that she is among the rare casters capable of forming a Buster Brave chain with her Buster Noble Phantasm, which also provides an overcharged NP strength buff and ignorance towards invincibility before firing, the natural 0.9 times damage modifier of the caster class is basically invisible. So, if she's AoE, spammable, and capable of so much destruction, why is she only number 3 on this list? It's because the primary looming gimmick of her kit counts on her being near death to acquire the most benefits. Rampage Privilege only doubles its NP steroid when Nero is below 50% of her HP. Meanwhile, her targetable Guts in Undying Magus only grants 1 HP upon revival. Just 1 HP! I'm seeing a pattern here. And then there's 7 Crowns, which grants the very rare erasure of her class defensive disadvantages for 3 turns. She even has a strange item construction passive skill granting, of all things, 10% additional HP recovery whenever she would be healed. So get her to below 50% HP, and then tank for as long as possible to hold witness to the greatest fireworks imaginable. Got it. She's a more reliable and AoE and Bonnie. Admittedly, this isn't really a detriment though, more like a niche quality really. It's Nero after all, she's not very good at dying unless it's made as dramatic as possible. But for my final 2 entries, death isn't even really a consequence worth consideration.
Number 2.
お願いレスラム隊よいでよ
Lancer
発熱神経
Ereshkigal.
これが私のクルキガルイルカルラ
Because she is waifu as hell, I wonder if many people would argue with me if I considered Ereshkigal to be one of the best constructed servants in all of Fate Grand Order. I recommend looking to the link in the card above for a video I've made regarding the basics of what makes Ereshkigal just so well built in the first place. Once you've taken a look at that yourself, it will become much clearer why I insist that she is one of the most useful Lancers available in FGO, being a hybrid offensive support servant that truly feels like she's no slouch at dishing out consistent damage while still becoming 100% complementary to her team with every action she performs, be it her skills, Noble Phantasm, even her deck, which are all heavily intertwined to raise both her own performance as well as her team's. She is covered top to bottom in both personal and team defense, power buffs, NP gain, even a huge NP steroid of her own, which doubles as a mana burst. She is perfect for both regular farming and challenge quests alike. She doesn't require any tricks, or advanced gameplay knowledge to get the hang of using her. If anything, she teaches you how to be more clever. For example, she possesses a Buster Card overcharge before she strikes, and then raises her entire party's attack by 20% after she strikes, so long as you have her protection from the Underworld active at any point. If placed in the middle of an NP chain, not only will you be rewarding a Kegel with extra damage, but also the following attack or Noble Phantasm, with some bonus attack damage equivalent to your average level 10 Charisma. And even though she has one of the absolute highest HP stats in the game, her consequently low attack stat isn't too much of a bother since she's got a 5-star stat line with so many potential gains. And she doesn't even have the lowest attack stat among 5 stars anyway. Kegel is very user-friendly, and she is more universally practical than any other Lancer at the time of both her initial release and subsequent re-release. Yeah, of course there are Lancers who are a lot more specialized, and can perform a game mechanic she just simply can't. But I'm actually serious when I tell you masters straight that this goddess of the underworld is the goddamned Super Saiyan 2 of Lancers, complete with the golden hair and beautifully realized in all of her moving parts. Somebody at Delightworks must have been a tremendous fan.
And finally, number 1. Assassin, King Hassan.
Do I really need to tell you the role for this man? He was show stealer of both Camelot and Babylonia chapters, capable of inflicting death on anything. Literally anything! Apart from maybe Jack the Ripper, there is no single target assassin who can beat this man mechanically either, especially when it comes to sheer strength. Seeing as he is second in raw attack power only to Shuten Doji, a goddamn Oni. And I'm pretty sure that's not a milestone he needs to worry about, seeing as he focuses on single targets. And he's got 3 Buster Cards in his main deck alone. Give him a mana burst that can double his chance of casting death on a target, along with all of the buffs that he could possibly ever want in Protection of the Faith. A++++. That's a plus for literally every additional buff, by the way. And then, in case you would ever be even slightly frightened of him dying, he's got the largest guts skill in the game, bar none, for 5 turns. This man, no, this angel has no drawbacks. Hell, even his hit counts with the NP gain he's got are no joke. A single crit on his lone arts card will grant the same amount of NP gauge as one of Kegel's arts crits. It's just like how we talked about Musashi earlier. He's covered. And I didn't even need to tell you that. You were probably gonna roll for him just for the novelty of having one of FGO's few leaked Dark Souls concepts in your arsenal, to simply scare your opponents into submission, and that's fine by me. While Kegel, despite being underline perfection, can still be a bit difficult to recommend if you own a trusted AoE Lancer, King Hassan, being completely unique and quality separate from every other single target assassin present, cannot be ignored. Truly and honestly, a solo artist without peer, worthy of the title of Grand Assassin. There, I'm done. What am I now, over 30 minutes in? You can maybe see now why I was a little late to get this out, and it's not helped by the fact that 2 of these entries are first released immediately in January. I just wanted to make sure that I was satisfied with my choices. And please take away that this was a general list, as in how uniquely good each of the servants I listed can be at all aspects of the game, not just for farming or for challenge quests alone. After all, it's not unheard of for single-target servants to be used for farming, and likewise, not every farmer can be useful within FGO's more difficult content. There's also new players coming in all the time, so at the very least, this list can definitely service them to give some ideas regarding what to pick out among the overwhelming amount of servants available in the game. Speaking of which, be on the lookout for popular or elusive servants almost guaranteed to be making their reruns this year, as foretold by the power of Clairvoyance EX, such as Edmond Dantes, Amakusa Shiro, Okita Soji, Ishtar, Shuten Doji, Sakata Kintoki, both forms actually, Minamoto no Raiko, all of the previous year's summer servants, Nero Bride, and Brynhildr together in one banner. And then, most outstanding of all, Merlin's return. In that precise order, actually. By that time, we'll have the next year to look forward to.
And then I'll have to make another one of these, won't I?